So I kind of just address the room and is like, so you're telling me you guys do all of this without any elders?
And
Maya's just gonna like look up at him like really confused and look around the room to like see if anybody else is also confused.
she kind of takes a few steps back and looks up and has them open the gate.
Seeing the interaction he has with them, Orlo kind of walks up and is just like, how do you guys know each other?
She kind of side-eyes you and looks at him, and he kind of just like gives her a little nod, and she kind of steps back and she goes, I've known him for, well, entirely too long, number one. But it's probably been 20 years now.
20 years? I thought you said it was a long time.
She kind of like pauses for a minute, and then it kind of sets in and goes, right. For some of us, that's longer than others. She kind of like looks you up and down.
That's longer than I've been alive.
And she just kind of like... well, then. That's cute. So, as the gate kind of finishes opening, she kind of makes sure you guys come in. You can hear that the shouting is a little bit more aggressive at the moment, as you know they keep yelling at them to get back because they're kind of like inching their way forward, maybe testing their luck a little bit. And
Orlo kind of looks over at Flo and is just like, asks him, hey Flo, you keeping a perimeter?
And Flo just looks up at the wall. Beyond my capabilities.
And I'm just like, okay, well, just keep your head on a swivel.
Will do.
So as the gate kind of closes behind you guys, she starts walking and starts kind of explaining a little bit about the city. You guys notice that the buildings here seem to be made out of not only like the rock, but it looks like some kind of maybe like concrete type of material. Like it looks like they've taken what they've dug out and used it to build some of the other places, like that are exterior of the wall or of the stone. Like I said, the overhang kind of covers most of the city, but you definitely get some direct sunlight in as well, and you can actually see the sun pretty well at this point because it's the sun's going down, so it's kind of shining through the opening. Buildings and stuff block it, which is kind of strange, especially for some of you, because not something that you're used to. You know, buildings maybe 2 stories tall is a lot, but here they're 5, 6, 8 stories tall, and it's something that's very very surreal experience almost.
Right. I just kind of keep taking it all in, just kind of in awe at everything that's around me. Kind of take in, is there anything like natural in this city, or is it all kind of like man-made?
There's, I mean, some of it is still very natural. Like a lot of it is dug into the rock face and stuff itself, and there's definitely like pieces of that cave that exists still. Like the stalactites and the stalagmites are all still hanging and things like that. There's not a lot of natural fauna or things like that because it's a city. a lot of it is very overcrowded and overpopulated, and a lot of that stuff is kind of trampled down very regularly, at least where you are, especially.
Yeah, so I'm just kind of looking around and kind of marveling at the ability they had to kind of build this city within a cave and within the overhang, but still kind of like shocked that there's nothing natural around, because that's all I've really mostly known. I'm just kind of taking that in.
How is everyone dressed? What's the general clothing?
A lot of people are dressed in kind of just like normal like cloth, like um like shirts and pants, or like shawls and robes and things like that. Nothing very fancy in any way, shape, or form. It's a lot of very just natural. Like it looks like almost like a flax woven fiber that they've made it all out of, and it all looks like they're wearing pretty much the same kind of stuff.
As he looks around, he's just gonna mutter, "I can't discern whose function is what." Because he can't.
Because everybody's
Everybody's
dressed the same.
yeah. um, did the guards have any specific particular kind of garb? Was it like armor plating or?
Yeah, a lot of them are dressed very similarly to what the lady is dressed in that you had just seen.
Okay.
That's kind of leading you through the city.
Okay.
A lot, like you can see, like it's like some kind of like a breastplate or like a leather armor top, and then like some kind of like robe or like skirt bottom.
Okay. At least we have the military function down.
We got that. We know that one. So she escorts you through the streets, and kind of very quickly winds through up towards the inner parts of the cave. You can see kind of where you're headed. Like it's very almost tiered, and you're heading towards that way. So she's kind of explaining a little bit about the city and the fact that it's very defensively sound, and they're very self-sufficient. Is there anything in particular you guys would want to know about this place, especially some of you that have never? I mean, you know, Laya, you've been in bigger cities, and some of those of you that have not ever been in bigger cities, something that might be intriguing to you, or something that you might be curious about.
What kinds of shops and trade do you all have here?
Shops are limited. Trade is generally based on whatever you can find. A lot of scavenging is done. We do try our best to grow food, but a lot of that is done below the surface. A lot of things don't like to grow up here anymore.
There's more to the city below the surface.
Some, yes.
Orlo, being a forager, kind of speaks up and he's like, below, how do things grow without sunlight?
Not everything needs sunlight to grow.
What exactly is it you're growing?
Oh, certain plants and mushrooms and certain kinds of moss, things of that nature, will all grow very well underground.
Orlo's kind of like taken aback because he doesn't really think of moss and things like that, even mushrooms, even mostly because he doesn't like mushrooms, but doesn't think of that as food, so he's kind of like puzzled by that.
And the rest of the things that we trade in are, like I said, scavenged things, animal, whatever plants we can find that are useful. Any petrified woods, or God forbid if we ever find metals.
What kind of metals?
I mean, irons and things of that nature are almost impossible to find anymore. Not unless you travel very, very far. a lot of the weapons and tools you see are going to be made from mostly bone. Occasionally, some of us who are fortunate enough do use more hardened rocks, things like obsidian. But again, it is not common.
Who runs the city?
We have, I guess, a mayor, if you will.
An elder?
Sawyer. Yes, to an extent. Somebody who was chosen to lead us.
And Elladan would ask how he was chosen, kind of like, little side note thing.
It is, I suppose you could call it a vote. He is chosen by the people, or she.
You're saying the oldest person isn't in charge?
No. One is selected out of us to give us better direction, and that person generally is chosen by the people.
If you're not being run by the wisest, most eldest people, how are you sure that they're going to make the correct decisions?
There are measures put in place for that, but that person is chosen and expected to be able to make those decisions.
Is your war chief also voted for by the people?
We do not have a war chief.
Then how are you going to defend all this land and all these people?
We have a guard, but that is commanded by just a watch commander, and that person is in charge of defenses and not for attacking things.
Orlo is just visibly confused and puzzled by this whole exchange. Just kind of stops asking questions and starts mulling over how this even exists.
How does Flo feel about the idea of it being a defensive military?
Well, for me, it's not that foreign of a concept. This city is more of a fortification with civilians that aren't meant to see combat. I suppose this is more of a safeguard rather than going out and looking for trouble.
Well said. That's very correct.
And he's just going to go back to looking at clothes and trying to figure out playing the guessing game of what everybody's supposed
So you definitely can see that there are people that are kind of doing things actively, but again, they are all wearing mostly the same clothing, so it's probably a little confusing.
How do you all differentiate your vocations within the city?
I don't understand. We just do different jobs.
I don't understand.
And she just kind of like stares at you for a second and just shakes her head, and it just continues on.
Elladan would go ahead and ask, do you not have any sort of class, like, like nobles, stuff like that?
Not really. There are some of those who are more wealthy, I suppose, but everyone does their part. Not unlike some other places in the world, but here specifically, we all try to do our best to help each other and make sure that everything runs as smoothly as possible.
And you can do that without an elder or a war chief?
the clash of cultures.
Yes, quite well, as a matter of fact.
Still confused.
the
But
whole
how?
it's just Orlo and Flo. They're like,
Like I just imagine Orlo just being like,
yeah,
just like walking around looking at like
Just can't believe what he's hearing or seeing.
Like, what? So you're saying we're not run by the old people here? Like, whoa.
So as you guys kind of make your way towards the center of the city, you happen upon this kind of, it's a little bit larger of a building. They all kind of look very similar, but this one does have some distinct markings around it. It's like they're like carved into the stone of it, and it's kind of intricate. It looks like it's maybe depicting people working and kind of doing jobs and things like that. But you notice that there is like some what appears to be like grass and things drawn into these pictures, and they do seem to be older. They look like they're very weathered at this point.
Orlo, just recognizing the green grass and flora, just kind of points over at it and just asks the old man, "Where is that?"
Well, that used to be here.
This cave or just this world?
Both.
Where is everything now?
We found that we were destroying our home, basically. That was some of the first things to go.
What were you destroying it with?
Magic.
Sounds like some serious magic.
We used it for almost everything, and unfortunately, some of the places in this world still do, and it causes even more chaos daily.
Is this what we're here to help with?
Hopefully, yes.
Elladan would ask, what exactly do you expect us to do about this situation? Seems a little bit beyond most people.
Well, that is what I am hoping that you can figure out. I don't have any other solutions at this point, and we're hoping that you might find other solutions that we did not think of.
Orlo sees Leah pop up out of nowhere, or Laya pop up out of nowhere, and is startled, and just is like, it's just like, where did you come from?
Sorry, I got sidetracked. What did I miss?
Apparently these pictures on this wall used to be this place. There's apparently they started using magic and it started destroying their world. So what used to be green and what I could tell normal is what we see now.
Magic can do that.
If left unchecked long enough, yes.
And she just kind of like stares down at her hands and then like just looks around the room. So what is it that we're meant to do?
Help in any way that you can.
So your magic, it feeds upon the life of this world itself.
Some of it, not all of it, but when we were using it to change things, the types of magic that we were using wore the veil thin in the world. We more or less sucked life out of this world.
And Elladan's going to ask, okay, so do you have, as far as where you're leading us, do you have an idea of what may restore life back to this world?
We know that there are places that life has thrived that still do. We know that there are places that things have passed through the barrier between worlds, and we know that there are places that magic still can be used freely with no ramifications. at least as far as we understand. But we have a very difficult time doing anything beyond passing rumors back and forth because we can't travel through most of them. And that's where I'm hoping that you all can.
Why do you think we'll be able to?
Because you have something that a lot of people here have lost at this point.
And that is
Heart, desire, passion, any of it. People here just try to survive.
Flo is just going to fold his arms and get lost in thought as he tries to sort all of this out.
So as conversations all happening, you guys are kind of ushered inside. You guys all sit down, kind of in this back room of this building, and it's kind of almost like I hate to say like a war room, but like it's kind of set up like that. It's like a big table, like an office room or something like that. But like, a big table and everybody's kind of sat around it. And on the table there is some semblance of kind of bits and pieces of maps that they've placed together. Some things that they think might help you. Places that they know of and where they are in relationship to them. It's not much. It's very limited as far as what information is there. But they offer it to you and they say, this is as much as we really know at this point. I will answer any questions that I possibly can to the best of my ability, but as far as where you will be going and what you will be doing, this is as much of a start as I can possibly give you. There are a few cities that we know of, a few places that might be able to assist what you're looking for, but as far as any more of a direction, I am afraid that I can't give you much.
Flo is just gonna look around the room at everybody.
And Laya is just like fairly confused and like trying to make sense out of the maps and things.
Yeah, Orlo's kind of looking at the maps kind of next to Laya and trying to make sense of, make note of anything that might seem important. Can I like do a perception check to see if there's anything marked on the map that seems like it would be marked because it's important?
Yeah, sure. I mean, go ahead. I mean, I can also. I mean, it's a map. They're self-explanatory. But go ahead and roll and see maybe if there's something that stands out to you specifically.
Nothing stands out to Laya. She rolled a 5.
It's a really pretty map.
I rolled a 9.
Pretty.
A 9.
Yeah.
So from what you can tell, like I said, it's a lot of just there's a couple of cities, a couple of like points of interests that might be other towns or might be like just trading places. Some of them are marked like with like the Mr. Yuck face. Like, don't go here, it's bad.
I'll see if I can. I'll take a look at it. I'll roll perception.
Mm-hmm.
I got a 5, so I also don't know what the fuck's. I don't know what a map is. So
It's a map. It's a thing you can see.
Is the old man and that woman in the room with us, or is
Yes.
it just okay? Flo still has his arms crossed, and he's going to ask, though I am what I am, magic is out of my depth, and though some of us may be familiar with it, we are in another world. But how did this all start? by this starting, I mean, how did you discover magic?
How did we discover it, or how did we find out that it was destroying us?
How was it discovered?
Oh, well, as far as I know, there are places of, well, there were places of power throughout the world, places where people could tap into these special abilities of theirs, depending on what they were, natural things, or more arcane things, or even those who believed in the religious aspect of things could find callings in that manner as well. All of them based around magic as is or some type of. We're not positive as to what exactly happened or where it all started, but that is, to the best of our knowledge, where it comes from.
Mm-mm.
It is just part of the natural world.
And he gets lost in thought again. He was trying to see if he could pinpoint some direction to go on as to why this was happening, but it really could be any number of things now in his mind.
Elladan will go ahead and say that, doesn't seem like we really have that much at all to go on.
A few things, but not much, no. There was something that we will give you a start with, and from there you will discover it yourselves. I am very much out of my depth at this point. I think that the best thing that you can do would be to go to some of these places maybe that have more or less normal plants and growth and things of that nature and figure out what's different there than here. Because, as you have seen, there is nothing. And there are most certainly places where these plants thrive. Unfortunately, that brings other issues with it, but they are there.
Which of these locales is best known for their magic or magical abilities?
The capital city, Brekka is where most of the magic users still reside. Protected as much as it can be, but they still use entirely too much of their magics to do even the most mundane things, which I am sure is causing quite a problem.
So, as they're conversating about the capital city, Orlo kind of looks at the map and kind of tries to figure out where they're at, where this capital city is, and if there's anything in between the two.
So it is marked on the map. And it is, from the metric of measurement that they give you, it's probably about a week and a half journey. And in between it, there is one city that is marked. They don't indicate how big that city is particularly, but it is Gilberg marked on the map.
Orlo just kind of points to the map and points to Gilberg and says, "What's here?"
Well, that was, or is, I suppose, a interesting location. It's kind of a bandit outpost, I suppose. Not particularly the nicest place in the world to visit.
Would there be anyone there worth speaking to?
I'm sure that there are plenty of people there worth speaking to, but whether or not you can speak to them without losing your tongue is another thing entirely.
Is that lady that introduced or guided us here still with us? I kind of lean over to her and look over to her. I'm like, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Vivian Riggs.
I kind of look over and I'm like, okay, Vivian. There were 2 caravans out there, and they were trying to get in. Not really sure what was going on there, but they did mention someone had stolen something from them. Would you know anybody by the name of Pace, or where we might be able to find some more information on the people that are in this city?
The name doesn't ring a bell off the top of my head, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. There's plenty of people in this city that I am not sure who they are, unfortunately. The best place I could direct you to would be the market square, but beyond that, I am not sure.
If we were to head over to the square, is there anybody you could suggest we start with once we get there?
There are a few merchants over there that are a little bit more agreeable than others, if you will. And she kind of pulls out a piece of paper and parchment.
And what do these merchants sell?
Whatever they can, for the most part.
Do any of them specialize in things that maybe were acquired not the most savory of ways?
Johanna can be known to find certain items when it's needed.
Well, guys, before we head out to anywhere else, I just want to take a stop in the market square after we're finished up here. And I just
Sounds
kind
Sounds
of
good to me.
keep looking over the map, give everybody else an opportunity.
You know, taking a look at things, I really feel like we don't have much leads beyond maybe going to the capital city and asking some questions, you know?
The capital makes sense to me.
Flo is just still trying to wrap his head around this. He was built for war.
The older man kind of sits up, pulls out another piece of parchment and starts kind of writing some stuff down. And he gives you a couple of he's trying to give you a couple of places that he thinks might be a good idea for you to start at. The first place is, if you're so inclined to try to travel to Brakarcord, the capital city, there's definitely some leads there that he thinks that you might be able to follow up on if you can get some people to talk. It might be difficult, but the mages might be willing to deal with you. I'm not certain that they're the nicest people, but I'm sure there are some services that you could offer that would work just fine. Beyond that, Elriel on the borderlands into the wilds. I think there might be some interesting leads to follow there. I think that the fact that has grown so rampantly when other places have died, there might be some interesting things to find there.
I look at the map and see how far away that is from where we're at.
That's probably about 4 days travel if you're traveling quickly.
And is it opposite the?
It's like southwestern kind of.
Like opposite direction of where we would want to go if we were going towards the capital?
The capital is like just almost directly east, so I mean,
Okay.
kind of.
Okay. I kind of pointed out on the map. I'm like, we're here. We could head down here, like after we hit the market square, head down here and see if there's any leads down here before we come back and head towards the capital city. Just so we're going in with maybe a little bit more information.
The only other place that I would even remotely recommend you try to go to, but it is a bit of a stretch. It's quite a ways away, but there are some, we call it the Fraction Lands. They're very far to the north, and that is where those who try to come back and find ores and metals, that is where they go, because the earth is very much cracked and easily accessible. But that is weeks' travel, especially by foot. But it is another option. There are, as we have been told, many camps of people out there trying to prospect their way into wealth, as it were, but it is exceptionally dangerous.
When you mentioned the wilds earlier, what exactly do you mean by wild? Because where I'm from, that means jungles and overgrown areas, and it doesn't seem like that's something that exists here.
It's very much like that, though. The wilds, the reclaimed wilds, are just that. It is where the forests have brought themselves back upon what we had built. Many of cities that were there are all but gone or swallowed by the forests.
Orlo kind of like perks up and shows definite interest in that area.
Some of the trees have grown taller than I've ever seen, and then there are mushrooms that are the size of trees. The animals that have grown well past what they should have. There's something else out there, but I do not know what.
Orlo is kind of like intrigued by something that isn't familiar to people even from this world. Doesn't really say much about it, just kind of like keeps it in his head that that's somewhere that he definitely would want to go.
Is there anything else that you guys want to ask these people now that you have them in front of you still? Because it may not be easy to do that again.
So I kind of just address the room and is like, so you're telling me you guys do all of this without any elders?
And Maya just kind of like look up at him like really confused and look around the room to like see if anybody else is also confused.
You kind of see Flo nodding his head, kind of like, I don't get how you tell everybody what job everybody has. It's just like
Elladan's gonna go ahead and say, I guess wisdom really doesn't come with age.
Orlo just looks at Elladan and is like, was that directed at me?
Elladan just kind of shrugs.
Orlo will remember that.
See, now I'm thinking of the
Pop up on screen.
Ryan
Orlo
from the office, where he's like writing a little note.
I think this is probably going to be a pretty good place to wrap things up, and you guys will have something to start with tomorrow. Tomorrow we're playing tomorrow.
I wish.
Start with next session to go visit those people, and then you guys can have some time to kind of decide what direction you guys also want to go with in terms of where you're headed first.